Several years ago, if you would have told me that we would have lived on a 26-acre farm in Missouri, I wouldn't have believed you. But I would have probably died with happiness.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
So I've been really hesitant to share this kind of content on the channel, knowing that everyone's journey is really a personal journey, and it's not the same for everybody. And the things that got us to where we are now are going to be different for you and your experience.
Am I on the camera?
Okay, sit down. Let's tell you when it's your turn.
Oh.
You're like a wild animal. I have to keep you like contained, or else you're gonna go everywhere. Okay. Okay. But today we are sharing our story, how we got here. I want to get into the nitty gritty, really. Give you some details, give you some numbers, exactly the nitty gritty. What did it take to get us to this point where we could actually buy a dream farm for our family at a fairly young age? But with that being said, I want you to take into account that everyone's journey is different. Maybe everything that Jared and I did isn't going to work for you and your circumstances, but I do want it to be inspiring for you. I hope that this video encourages you to, maybe if you have a dream to buy a farm, or this is something you've been wanting to do for a long time, maybe we can give you a few tips, some helpful information to really get you on your way. And if anything, encourage you to crash down the fears, put down the doubts, and start really pushing forward with faith, moving forward with optimism, and really going for the things that you really desire the most in life. Okay, so I brought in Mr. Hardman. This is Jared. You've seen him a bit on the channel, but you've never really heard like a ton from Jared. So he was definitely a key player, if not the superstar of this journey, really, and getting us to where we needed to be. But he's the big risk taker in the relationship. So Jared, I really wanted to share with them.
You want me to sing?
No.
Sit on front porches and swing like.
No, we're not going to perform for them today. We're gonna give them good information. I want to talk about what it took for us to get to this point. Where do you think it started for us? What did we do to set ourselves up to be able to buy this place?
Going back to the very beginning, when we first got married, I was a teacher making, $40,000 a year, and we had housing that was provided for us. And the thing about housing, which is beneficial, is that you have cheap housing, but you're still renting, right? And so even though you might be paying out very little, you're not leveraging. So the key piece of everything that I'm going to be talking about today about numbers is leverage. We were in that area and living in a teacherage, and then we decided to say, you know what, let's buy our first house. And it took a long time. We decided to settle on something that was a little bit less in our budget, less than $100,000. It's like $84,000.
So we bought a really cheap house.
We bought a really cheap house with the intention of using it as a rental property. And so we lived in it for a year, and then that's when we moved to another location, and we kept that property.
And we rented
it out. Now, looking back, I probably would have kept that property for 10 years, but I said, I can swing and make a quick $10,000 profit after 2 years, 3 years, I think. So we basically just turned around and sold that, made a little bit of income. But what I learned from that process is the power of leverage. Of course, we followed Dave Ramsey to a degree. You don't have debt that is going to cripple you. So for me, it's anything that is liability. Cars, I don't buy new cars. Okay, I have a car that I've had for 10 years, a truck, and instead of buying a new truck, I just got a new paint job on it because it was worth more to me just to keep it. What you need to do is always be frugal. You still are frugal, and you only buy things that are going to be assets or income producing. We bought a camper for our family because it was about $10,000. But what I did was I said, well, how can I turn this into an asset? So I started renting out the camper on Outdoorsy, and I rented that out every summer for 4 summers and basically made back my initial investment of $10,000 and profit and more. So I probably made about $15,000 to $20,000 renting that camper. And so now it's a camper that's paid off that I can continually rent out as a stream of income. Another place when I was a principal, and then so I increased my salary, which was beneficial, and then we had no house payment again. But again, we were living in teacherages, which was
really cheap
rent.
Yeah.
But if you equate it, it was $250 a month, which you think, oh, that's awesome. But if you actually calculate over the course of 2 to 3 years, that's still $10,000 that you throw away that you will never get back. Versus when you purchase, you are buying something that you are then able to hopefully recover your initial investment and gain that back, as long as you find it in the right momentum and the right deal.
That period of time of living in such a cheap rental situation also allowed us to pay off all of our debt.
Yep.
So we bought a camper during that time, bought everything in cash. We paid off all of our debts. And then after that,
as we were like, okay, what's our next move? The books that you read always talk about living like no one else so you can live like no one else. You also need to have good credit. So when you are only buying things on cash, you're not building credit. So going back to the camper, going back to the vehicles, you have those purchases demonstrating that you have ability to pay things off in a timely manner. And then you never miss a payment, ever, right? You can never miss a payment. That's the key of building up credit. Back to where we were living, no debts, no housing payment. What we did was we bought our second property.
well, we bought a fourplex because we wanted to move to the next town. And then we lived in it. So we lived in a really small apartment with 3 little kids. We had a newborn baby, and we also ran that apartment complex while Jared took on a new principal job. So Jared's always been in the workforce. He's always been in education, and I've always wanted to be at home with the kids. So hence why we hustled so much and why Jared was always so busy building assets and stuff, because we really were always living on one income. I also feel like it's really important to put out there that we didn't know we were going to end up in Missouri this whole time. We didn't know that we were going to buy a farm in Missouri. But what we did know is that we had a dream of what we wanted in the future, what we wanted for our family. And, really, God willing, we were following personal inspiration and revelation for what we needed for our family, which led us through all of these steps.
We had been looking at Missouri because 5 years prior, you could find property for really inexpensive. I'm all about finding a good opportunity, the kind of the diamond in the rough.
We ended up selling our home right after COVID. It wasn't, a lot of the markets were high. Ours wasn't huge in Green River, Wyoming, but we did sell pretty good on our house. And Jared took a teaching job up in Jackson Hole. But after COVID, over in those areas, especially in the beautiful country around Jackson Hole, people were moving in masses and buying up the property. And so it just skyrocketed. Everything skyrocketed. And we having this inspiration to buy land, but why didn't we buy in Star Valley?
Well, it's short. Well, we always had the desire to be able to grow also. More than just ranching. I grew up in the West, and I loved the mountains and the high desert, but I also love the idea of planting fruit trees and letting them grow versus like them dying off so easily.
Yeah. We tried so hard to grow in Wyoming fruit trees and lots of different things, but it's such a short growing season. I'm not saying you can't do that, because you definitely can garden in Wyoming, but I think for what we had in mind, we wanted We wanted like self-sufficient, feed you for the whole year, big orchards, lots of berries, right?
And just a lot of space. The big piece why we didn't buy is that I refused to say I was going to spend, I think all in was going to be over $1 million to get what exactly dream we wanted. So that really wasn't following the Dave Ramsey mentality, right? But again, going back to what I was saying, there's a key component, because if you just saved money all of those 10 years, the cost of inflation and everything else goes up, then you wouldn't be able to just buy a house in cash anyways. So we said, we're not paying $1.2 million. We'd be in debt till we're 50, and then not even in the place that we necessarily would want to live. I kind of drug my feet a little bit and said, I'm refusing to do that. So where was the opportunities? The Midwest. So I had saved this home for $385,000, was a little bit more, but it was on 26 acres. So then when this home dropped to 300 and some thousand, I won't get into too much of it, but we put an offer in because we said, hey, let's look at this. I bought it as a second home off of my initial income that I was having. And we purchased it. We had to have about $50,000 down payment. And we said, let's just go.
So I want to backtrack just a little bit, because the year prior to buying this place, we were living in Jared's parents' cabin in Star Valley looking for a place to buy. And so while we were there, we weren't paying rent and we weren't paying a mortgage. So we paid off all of our debts again. We always, whenever we had the opportunity in these rental situations, we always were blessed to have really low rental income. And that's when we paid off all our debt. And that's when we were able to save up. We also had money from our home that we sold. We had cash from our fourplex that we sold in Wyoming. We sold our home. We sold our investment property. We lived in Jared's parents' cabin in Star Valley for a whole year. So if you really think about it, that is what catapulted us and put us in the right position to be able to buy this place.
What is it that you want? We wanted to have some simplicity, some going back to the basics, some slower living, and just being able to enjoy the peace of being out in nature, being out in the country.
I didn't want to go through my whole life regretting or wondering what would have happened. And we didn't want to wait till we were too old to work the land. We wanted to bring our kids into this. It's all about family, and it was all about raising our kids in this kind of experience and giving them, this experience. So I think that's a huge part of the risk taking is realizing that time is all you really have. Time is the most valuable thing that we have. It's not about money. It's about the experience. It's about the time that you have with these people. And so that was a huge driving factor for us to take that risk. And you know what? Whenever you're going to take a big risk, whenever you're chasing after something, number one, it always looks crazy to everybody else. No one understands what is happening in your heart and in your mind. But God does. And another thing is there's always fear. There's always lots of fear in the unknown. And so always be aware of that. Just because it's scary and it scares you crapless doesn't mean it's wrong.
No, you just have to move forward. And reading Chip Gaines's book, and he talked about, well, what's the what is that, Capital Gains?
Capital Gains by Chip.
He talked about, okay, what's the worst that could happen? You go bankrupt. Okay, you go bankrupt, then you start over. But at least you were willing to push forward. And if we didn't take all of those calculated risks up until that point, it took 10 years of calculated investment strategies and risk to get to that level to say this is what we want to do and feel comfortable enough to push forward. It didn't just land in our lap, or we were never just given anything. In fact, nothing was given to us. If anything, we were given the ability to say, go figure it out. And that's where you gain the ability to do the things that you need to do, is in the struggle. When you don't struggle and you're just handed things, you don't appreciate it. And we're going to work and put in that sweat equity to make it ours and to make it beautiful. And there's power in that.
Amen. Preach it, babe. Preach it.
Preach. Some people always talk about failures, but I really don't believe that there's failures in a sense, because failures are really just hiccups to say, keep on going.
right? You don't stop. That's the key.
You just learn from it.
You just learn. You say, was it really a failure, or more of like, it didn't work entirely what I wanted it to do, but it was just a lesson. And you just keep going. You keep moving forward always. And that's what you got to do.
Babe, you should have this channel. You should make up your own channel, babe. You're so good. How to buy a farm channel.
How to buy a farm. No,
Only like a financial
The
advice.
financial advice piece. And here's the other thing. Although we would love to just say, can we just have a farm on here? Maybe that might be the case someday. Right now, that's not the case. And as anyone knows, that farming it's not going to, on a homestead of only 26 acres, it's not going to be that much producing. So what are your other avenues? For me, I do stocks and other things in real estate.
To end this conversation with just the reality of what that means. Everyone's always like, oh, I went and bought my dream. This is so dreamy. Life is so perfect. But none of the process is perfect. We still live on planet Earth. We still have struggles and trials all the time. And I feel like we were really blessed with opportunities to build up to this moment, and we seized the moment. And now we're here. And every day we love it, but every day we fight to live here too, and to make this work financially. And it's still a struggle. So you just got to keep, like you said, you just got to keep moving forward. You got to keep dreaming. I am always saying that you just have to keep your dreams alive, whatever that means to you. And you just got to keep fighting for your family for that. And it's never easy. I would say this was the hardest decision, the hardest thing we've ever done. And it's hard every day.
It was the hardest one. So been the most rewarding. Like every day, just looking out is an overload of green and
beauty and joy.
it's just amazing.
And seeing our kids out here. So would you say the risk was worth it?
Absolutely, it always is.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely. Even if it was, for the time frame.
Even if it was for a short amount of time?
Yeah.
And we had to go back home to mama?
Yeah. It's always worth.
That's not going to happen.
You just keep going. Keep moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, babe.
Thank you.
I make a new video every single week on homemaking skills. This is actually a different kind of video for me. I've never made a video like this here on the channel, but I made it in hopes that it would be inspiring for you, whoever is out there who has the farm dream, wants to buy a property. I hope that this was inspiring for you, and make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you each week here on the Pioneer Home. Love you lots.